sustainable agriculture, as defined by the USDA. Okay? When we're talking about sustainable agriculture, there is an official definition by USDA, right? But by definition, it's not a label. I'll get to that in a second. Sustainable agriculture means an integrated system of plant and animal production practices having a site-specific application that will, over the long term, satisfy human food needs, enhance environmental quality and natural resources based upon agriculture economic dependencies, and making the most effective use of non-renewable resources and on-farm resources, blah, blah, blah. Sustain an economic viability, and then enhance the quality of life for farmers. Sustainable agriculture is pretty broad spectrum, right? What is sustainable for one person isn't sustainable for another. Okay? If you're in Korea, using rice bran to make your IMOs for your natural farming is certainly sustainable. That's not sustainable here. You got to ship those things in, and then you put it out on your field. What's the difference between buying a bag of fertilizer? You know, it's not sustainable in certain places. So it's really speculative when you talk about sustainability. And now, is it environmentally sustainable? Is it economically sustainable? Sociologically? So it's all about the perspective you take. Now, we're talking about organic. This is an official definition. It means there's a label, which means organic can be slapped up, a sticker can be slapped up on something that says USDA organic certified. Okay? That's an official labeling. USDA organic agriculture is defined as an ecological production management system that promotes and enhances biodiversity, biological cycles, soil biological activity, and it is based on minimal use of off-farm inputs on management practices that restore and sustain and enhance ecological harmony. Blech. The primary goal of organic agriculture is to optimize the health and productivity of interdependent communities of soil life, plants, animals, and people. Saying that they all kind of together, yeah? The term organic is defined by law, the legal definition, as opposed to the labels of natural or eco-friendly. So when you go to the grocery store and you see your cereal and it says natural on it, right? There's no regulation as far as labeling of what natural means. You could literally have it say all natural, I don't know, cotton candy. Like, it's just like, that's so not natural, right? But you can put it on anything. All natural cat food. You can put it on. It's just a label that has no regulation behind it, although organic does have regulation behind it. So it's just a legal definition of using, I guess, sustainable products and all that. But, question, if a guy is a coffee farmer in Ahualoa and he ships in 15 pallets of organic fertilizer from Colorado every year, and he puts it out on his field, and then he gets, some rock phosphate from Wyoming. He uses that as his phosphorus source. Sure, that's organic. Yeah, those things come from organic sources, but they got shipped in. How much fossil fuels was burned getting those materials here? And when you're talking about the plastic bags that go around your organic fertilizer and all this stuff, when you talk about sustainability, it's like you really got to observe what are you doing to your environment despite being called organic or not. Okay, so to some folks, organic is the answer. To me, it's certainly not good enough. Okay? You could be an organic farmer and just buying bags and bags of stuff and putting it out there. It's all mined out of the ground from Montana. They use big bulldozers and they dig down a mile down into the earth, and they take these buckets and they put it up and they put it in a bag, and then they put it on a boat and they ship it off to you, and it's like, how is that organic? It's literally just mining stuff out of the ground. So you really got to be careful of where your stuff comes from. If you plan on being organically certified, what exactly that means and what it entails, and what does it mean to you versus your customer, yada, yada. Okay? I have a relationship with one of the farmers out in Waimanalo where they make the most fantastic lettuce I've ever had in my life. Is it Nalo Farms? do a really good job, and they sell to everybody, and they charge top dollar for it. And all the ecologically minded people all buy from them, despite them not being organically certified. Why aren't they organically certified? Because they know in their environment, they're not going to be able to produce the product that they produce for their customers without putting slug bait around the peripheral of their property. Everything else that they do is organic. Everything else would get them a certification for organic. But they know that they can't physically keep the slugs out organically, so they choose to use a conventional slug bait, and that is it. Why are they so successful? Because they communicate that with their customers. At the farmer's market, people always come up, are you certified organic? No, we're not, but we do everything organically, and we only use this slug bait, yada, yada. And I know that my product will be exactly the same week after week after week because they use that product, okay? The only reason why they don't use the organic one versus the conventional, it doesn't work. You ever tried to use organic slug bait? Don't waste your money. It doesn't work. We haven't figured out an answer for that yet. So, slugs are a problem. Certification for organics might be an issue for you, okay? So just know the differences and that it's a labeling thing.
Several years ago, probably 10 or more, I asked for the definition, and they mentioned if you're in an area that and people are, if you're not using herbicide, pesticide, but you are in an area where your neighboring, farmers are, that it would not. I don't know what the radius was, maybe 2 miles or so.
It's usually about 50 yards. So like in order to be certified organic, you can't have any kind of conventional sprays sprayed within 50 yards of your land, okay? You can't make your neighbors not spray conventional, but what you can do, this is what the USDA tells you to do, make a buffer zone. So 50 yards into your land, you make a buffer zone, and then you start growing from that point on. Well, with people with 5 acres, and you're on a spaghetti lot, it's like, forget it. It's just, why would you even bother? So just know that to be an organic farmer, the world is against you, okay? If you want to be a conventional farmer and use GMO seed and use ethyl bromide in your soil and then go out and just spray Roundup all over the world, you can. You don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to ask anybody's permission, okay? If you're an organic farmer and you want to use a new fertilizer that somebody told you works pretty good, you have to get a hold of the certification agency. You have to apply to see if that is certified organic, and does their agency recognize it, and in what quantities, and then they want to know how much are you putting out, and where are you putting it, and how close to the water source are you putting it, and blah, blah, blah. So to be an organic farmer, they make it impossible as they can. I don't know why. Maybe it's because conventional farming is called conventional farming, when organic should be called conventional farming, and then conventional should be called something else, like poisonous. Okay? So just know that it's a definition thing. And then when we're talking about, what else did I have here? Oh, and then conventional. Conventional is a form of modern farming that refers to industrialized production of livestock, poultry, fish, and crops. The method of industrial agriculture are techno-scientific, meaning without science, you couldn't be a conventional farmer. I mean, you may not be the scientist, but you're buying stuff from scientists. Okay? So it's very dependent on technology and how science is playing with technology. Economics, and it's very, the method of industrial agriculture is very political. They include the innovation of agriculture machinery and farming methods, genetic technology, talking about genetically changing a crop, that's conventional, techniques for achieving economies of scale in production, and the creation of new markets and consumption, the application of patent protection on genetic information, guys like Monsanto patenting a plant, ridiculous, and global trade. So, essentially poison. All right, next question, 12. Does anybody know what these are? Did anybody cheat? Nobody cheated? I would have cheated.
Is there like a ripener?
Yes.
No, I worked for the plantation for a while. They did testing. So it's the only thing I could remember.
They are, these three are called PGRs, plant growth regulators, or hormones. Okay, these are plant hormones. cytokinin, gibberellin or gibberellic acid, and auxin. There's hundreds of other ones, but these are the ones that most people are going to talk about. Just like you and me and everybody else who is 15 years old and zits all over their face and hair showing up in weird places, hormones affect plants. Okay, so as a plant grows, know that when it's this tall versus fruiting versus dying off, the hormones that are going on inside that creature are just like humans, yeah? A 90-year-old woman has different hormones than I do. And so, because they're just in a different phase of life. So just know that these things exist and that you can manipulate them and use them to your advantage. In natural farming, I will actually use that osmotic pressure. Like I said, I'll take plant materials and I'll kind of suck out all the good stuff. And when I suck out some of the good stuff, it's usually going to be a lot of hormones. And I'll use those hormones in an application in natural farming. Okay? So where some companies make synthetic gibberellic acid, I know how to, and you could possibly know how to, go out into the environment, harvest it, and then use it. Number 13. Name 3 types of pollination. Just to save money or save time, I'll just kind of rock these out, okay, guys? 3 types of pollination. There's abiotic, meaning without biology. So wind, water splashing. Those are abiotic ways that pollen can transfer from a flower to another flower or whatever. You have biotic, you have like bees, and you have wasps and all the wonderful things that go in and cause pollination. Please remember that flies are much more prolific pollinators than bees are. Okay, the family of Diptera, there's so many flies. You're thinking just that one kind of fly. No, there's so many millions of different kinds of flies, and those will cause a lot of pollination in Hawaii specifically. Okay, and then there's anthropogenic. What does that mean? Anthro meaning man, yes. So we are so arrogant that we actually put ourselves in our own little category of pollination.
What do you say that word again?
Anthropogenic. Anthropogenic. Anthro, P-O-G-N-I-C. So we will come along with a little duster and go up to this flower, this vanilla flower, and then we'll climb all the way up the thing, and then we'll go up there, and then we touch it up there, and then that's anthropogenic. Okay. What is CTAR? Yes, so it is the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. Every farmer in Hawaii should build a really close relationship with CTAR. If not the UH Hilo, but definitely CTAR. There's a reason. CTAR has been around for 115 years. They've been collecting data since day one, growing in Hawaii. They've done all the work for you. There is no reinventing the wheel in Hawaii. CTAR has been there, done that. Okay? So all you need to do, if you need information, is get over to the CTAR people. Who do you talk to? Well, why not talk to the people like your extension agents who get paid by tax dollars that you pay for, that are sitting there in their office waiting for you to come visit them and ask them about plant diseases? Because they're sitting there just waiting, and then you pay their salaries. Why not get off your butt, go into his office and say, hey, I got this disease and here's this plant, what do you think? And then they help you out. Or they come to your farm and they help you out. So, CTAR, definitely a relationship you want to build as a farmer. Okay? Explain what an extension agent is. Hey, I just did. A state employee put in charge of addressing individuals' issues in regards to agriculture. They identify, they help design, and they help with implementation of your plan. These folks sometimes are professors at the university. Sometimes they're just extension agents like Michael DuPont. That's all he does is spread the word about his piggery. That's all he does. And he's just, all day long, he's just talking about the piggery and how awesome it is, and that's all he does, and he gets paid money for it. How fantastic of a job is that, huh? So why not utilize his services? Get a hold of him, and I'll show you how throughout the class. Okay? What is IPM? I mentioned it earlier. Integrated management, correct. Pest management, integrated pest management. Okay? Meaning it's a plan that you put in place to address not just the issues that you have, but the issues that you might have. So in your plan, you have a section that says, because you know that Phytophthora is prolific where you live, you don't have any yet, you have a note in your plan saying that Phytophthora might appear in my property. These are the steps I'm going to take if that happens. Okay? You need to plan ahead. It's all about planning ahead. Okay? We'll get into IPM. I'm going to spend a whole day on that. Okay? I just need to make sure my mic's still working. Bop, bop, bop. Awesome. We're moving. All right. Name 3 ways to prevent erosion. We already said 1, cover cropping. What else? First of all, you need to understand your soil structure and type before you do anything. You need to understand the characteristics and the dynamics of your soil. Once you do that, you can start doing things like microbial inoculation. Taking certain kinds of fungus and putting it into your soil will prevent erosion. Why does that happen? Because fungus have these little mycelia, right? They have these microscopic little branches that you can't see without a microscope. But those tiny little branches will actually go out and grab onto a piece of soil, hold onto it real tight, and actually wrap itself around it and use that as a base to send spores off from. Well, you don't have that unless you have the fungus in the soil, right? Once it's in there and it's wrapped around that soil surface, rain hits it, what happens? The rain hits that mycelia, it hits those branches, which are actually water resistant. And it hits that and the water just bounces right off. What happens when there's no fungus on that soil? Water hits it, it breaks apart and turns into mush, and then it's just gone and it gets eroded away. So you see how microorganisms, especially fungus themselves, can actually grab onto a piece of soil, a microscopic piece of soil, and make it its own, and then it stays. Also, bacteria does the same thing. Bacteria makes an ooze. It makes a it makes an exudate. So it's a sticky material that basically what it does is it creates a sticky environment so that soil can cling to it, and then it uses that soil to reproduce and create more bacteria within the soil surface because it's a great place to camp out, safe place, there's plenty of moisture in there. So bacteria as well will cause soils to clump together and then prevents erosion. Okay? Define an agricultural pest. All right. A pest is a plant or animal detrimental to humans or human concerns. That's the definition of a pest. A plant or animal that is detrimental to humans or human concerns. Very arrogant of us. So, alternative meanings include organisms that cause a nuisance, epidemic disease that is associated with high mortality of your crop. So is it something that causes disease or problems for your crop? It's a pest. In a broader sense, a pest is a competitor for humanity. A weed is right next to your corn plant. It's taking away nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from your corn plant. You don't want it there. You're competing for the nutrition so that your corn plant can absorb those things. You're literally enemies with that weed. Okay? So just to break it down in a simple sense, it's literally a competitor for humanity. In the past, the term might have been used for detrimental animals only, like insects or something like that. Thus, for example, causing confusion between the generic term pesticide and insecticide. Pesticides handle weeds. They handle insects. Insecticides only insects. Fungicide only fungi. See the difference? Okay. It is any living organism that is invasive, prolific, detrimental, troublesome, noxious, destructive, a nuisance to other plants or human concerns, livestock, human structures, or wild ecosystems. Generally, a pain in the butt. Okay? If you don't want it there, it's a weed. Now, I have I wouldn't say they're problems. In my garden, I have plants that come in and will set up shop like, what's it called? Amaranth. So I'll have amaranth, spiny amaranth, and there's just purple ones. They're the broadleaf plants that come up. They're usually one of the first ones to set up shop. I get amaranth in my garden. I cultivate it. I actually let it grow. I'll fertilize it. Why? It's an incredibly delicious green. Mix it with a little bit of endive and a little bit of arugula and some lettuce, and it makes an incredible green. And it's a weed that grows prolifically all over the place. Now, is that a pest? Nope, not for me. But if it was on your land, you might think it's a pest. So definition of pest is certainly, on how you approach, you look at your plants, okay? Clover. People go crazy trying to pull out clover, and they're always, why? Clover takes over an entire area. It absorbs a very small amount of nutrients. It prevents weeds. It prevents erosion. I leave it. Actually, I'll take clumps of it and bury it in different areas of my garden so that I can get clover over the entire garden. And then I'll plant my beets right into the clover. Prevents weeds. Beets come out. They're protected. The beets come out, sit on top of the soil, and they're protected from the sun a little bit from them. And it's just a great tool to use. So your idea of a weed or a pest is certainly speculative. Okay. Essentially, weeds, insects, animals, and pathogens can be pests. And the last, 19. Name 3 techniques for abiotic environmental management. Abiotic meaning wind, sunshine, rain, things that are not caused by animals or just caused by nature, yeah? So, 3 techniques for abiotic environmental management. How about something like mulch, plastic mulch, natural mulch? So you're going to help with abiotic factors like erosion. You know, rain comes down, you put mulch down, it holds all that soil and doesn't allow it to wash away. Windbreaks. You set up some vivee rows all along the side of your property, and that stuff just grows like crazy, and it grows nice and tall, and it prevents wind from knocking your coffee berries off or whatever. Okay? Greenhouses, definitely an abiotic environmental management tool. You start creating your own environment, a controlled environment. Last question. Name 5 sustainable, environmentally safe weed prevention and eradication techniques. We talked about 1, cover cropping. Using another crop in its place. You put it there in advance, and then the other ones can't settle in. The most effective way, hand pulling. Yay, organic weed control. Tillage, bad, causes erosion, causes more weeds, but some people use it. Canopy farming. Okay? If you layer your crops so that, say you have coffee, and then you plant a koa tree every 4 coffee trees, you create shade. Coffees love the shade. And then you could prevent weeds from settling in because of the lack of sunlight or whatever. Okay? So you can do canopy, mulching. Solarization works really good. Solarization is a technique where you cover a plot of area that is heavy in weeds with black or clear plastic. You lay it up over top, and what happens is the soil heats up so hot and the moisture level goes up so high that all the weeds that are on that plot will actually die, provided you have direct sunlight and you got a nice heat in there. If it's raining and all that stuff, it doesn't really have that much effect if it's cloudy. So solarization definitely depends on sunlight. If you put clear plastic out, it will. It doesn't work as good, but the black plastic is certainly recommended. Also, what happens is as the temperature increases in the soil and it starts killing off all of the weeds, the seed bank, the weed seeds that are in the soil that are waiting for some environmental condition to trigger it to start growing, usually that environmental trigger is temperature. So if you put the solarization sheet out, the sun starts increasing the temperature. Temperature goes from 85 to 90. All of a sudden, those weed seeds, might trigger at 92 degrees. And you just caused it to trigger. And then it keeps going up and up and up. So as those germinating seeds are starting to emerge, it becomes so hot that they can't survive, and then they just die off. So in addition to killing the weeds that you have there, it also kills off the seeds, causes germination, kills off the seeds that might come up later. Okay, solarization is a great way to do it, and also a great way for weed control is livestock. Get a paddock out there and get some cattle or get some goats out there, and I use it all the time. I borrow my friends' goats all the time and just clear out my land. I don't go out there and weed whack. There's too many fire ants. You know, I just send out the goats for 3 days and give my buddy $20 or a case of beer for your goats, you know. So it's real easy. So there's a pretest, yeah? Woo! Did you learn something? Okay. Now you know that at the end of the class you're going to understand some pretty complicated but yet important concepts, right? You understand the value of each one of those things I touched on. They may be exhausting. You may not have the base to build off of on a lot of these concepts. That's what I'm here for. Please let me know that you're struggling or whatever, and then we'll just make an appointment for you to come into my office. We'll sit down and talk about the concepts, okay? Please don't get angry at me for giving you really, really hard stuff and information, because this is the stuff that you need to succeed, to be honest truth. I mean, you could be a farmer for 30 years, and if you don't understand what the 3 things on the side of a fertilizer bag mean, I mean, I ask, what the heck have you been doing? You know? But then again, now's the time to change that. So,
I had 2 things right.
you had 2. Hey, man. Anybody get more than 2? Top of the class, buddy. So, I gave you this, soil fertility basics, okay? This is a write-up by North Carolina State University. It's kind of technical, but super important. And if you say understood most of these concepts, 50% of these concepts, then you will be considered a sort of soil scientist and be much more advanced than the average farmer, okay? I'm handing you this now because I want you to read it for not this next class, but the class after, and I want you to understand almost everything that's in here to the best of your ability. Okay? In addition to the readings that I'm giving you from the book. So, yeah, like I said, there's going to be a couple concepts in here. We start talking about chemistry. We'll start talking about different elements in here that might be over your head. Like I said, communicate with me, emails, all that good stuff. And let me know, I just don't understand what the heck ZN is. And I'm like, boy, that's zinc, man. That's important. You need to have zinc in your soil. And I'll tell you why, and yada, yada, yada. I'll go on and on about it, okay? So, there's that. Readings. I'm going to give you your assigned readings for the book right now for the entire class so that you can jump ahead if you want, okay? This book right here, I want you to know why I picked it. You're going to start going through this thing,